You may recall that in the very first video for 9.5, we talked about the function 2 to the x power, and we talked about graphing the inverse function of it and what the equation of that would look like. Well, let's go back to that for a little bit. If we were to write the inverse of the equation, we would get x equals 2 to the y power. And we talked about how keeping an exponential form just isn't realistic, and we have to use logarithmic form. And so this would really become log base 2 of x equals y. And if we saw a problem like this and we were asked to graph it, we have to think about how we would approach it. And the way that we're going to do that is just pretty much how we did exponential equations, or graphing those, and we're going to use a t-chart. So if we did see an equation that asked us to graph with logarithmic form, what we're actually going to do is we're going to backtrack. We are going to backtrack to that exponential form, and we're going to use that as kind of our starting point for a t-chart. But if we tried to fill in values for x, it would make it kind of cumbersome, and we'd come up with some decimals, fractions, and some messy numbers for y. So what we're going to do with this is we're actually going to start with the y this time. We're going to take 0, we're going to plug it in for y. And so now I would have 2 to the y, or 2 to the 0 power, which would equal 1. So one of the coordinate points that we would end up getting is 1, 0. Then I would start, and I'd go with 1, and then 2, and 3, and see what that produces. I would then get 2 to the first, which is 2, 2 squared, which is 4, and 2 to the third, which is 8. Now if I keep going, I'm going to go off the chart, so I'll kind of stop there. This gives us a few points going in the right direction. And to see kind of how that graph tapers off, I'll actually do a -1. And you will get 2 to the negative first, which is 1 over 2. So we'll get we'll get 1/2 -1. And then we'll plot this. And that's what the graph log base 2 of x would look like. And if you recall, with that line of symmetry at y equals x, and what y equals 2 to the x power looks like, you'll see how it makes a mirror image across that line. For number 1, we have graph the function log of x base 1/2. I want you to pause the video, see if you can turn it into an exponential function, and then graph the logarithmic equation given. So hopefully the first thing you did was change it to an exponential function. And what you should have gotten is 1/2 to the y power equals x. From there, you're going to make your t-chart. And what you're going to do is you're going to fill in your y values. Once you start filling your y values, then you can do the calculations for the x. Now, what you'll probably notice, though, is when I started with 0, 1, 2, I stopped at 2 and then went to my negative numbers. And the reason why is because once I started putting in those positive numbers, I noticed how dramatically smaller my x values got. It went to 1/2, then 1/4. If I continued in that direction, it would get exponentially smaller. So I chose to go to the negative numbers and get some higher points to get a better idea of what the graph looks like. Then I took each of these coordinate points and I plotted them on the graph on the right.